Wow, so the Eagles just made a huge move with NFL free agency right around the corner as they made the incredibly hard decision to move on from one of their best defensive players, leaving a lot of question marks about the future of that position and what the Birds may do next. And it might just surprise you, so let's break this move down, including what it means going forward and the Eagles' options to replace him. Plus, why is there actually a chance that this move is temporary and the veteran star could return to the Eagles after all? Meanwhile, what's the latest buzz on a potential Myles Garrett trade to Philly, as well as some of the other Eagles' top free agents? Well, we're going to talk about all that and more news starting right now. Hey guys, welcome to the Philly Fan 21 channel. If you're new, I'm Evan and I cover all things Philadelphia Eagles. And NFL free agency is right around the corner and the Eagles have a lot of big decisions to make. As obviously, they got a bunch of important guys set to hit the open market, they got limited money to spend, and also they got to decide who they're going to bring in from the outside. However, one big decision that has kind of flown under the radar now for weeks, but was probably one of their biggest dilemmas of the entire offseason, was what to do with Darius Slay. Just considering that the star veteran cornerback was entering the last year of his deal, he had a huge cap hit set to hit next year, and also there was a bunch of dead money set to hit after his current contract expired, so keeping him on that final year of his current deal would have been pretty darn expensive. However, Slay was still playing at an extremely high level, and he had said that he wants to return for one final season in Philly. So the Birds definitely had a lot of things to weigh there, and on Monday afternoon, they made their decision, and it's kind of a hard pill to swallow, as Adam Schefter reported that the Eagles would in fact be releasing Slay, meaning the six-time Pro Bowl corner will now be free to sign with any team once the legal tampering period begins in just around a week, being March 10th. And while there's obviously a lot to break down here, we at least got to start off by saying if this is in fact it for Slay in Philly, then it's going to be tough to see him go. I mean, this is a guy who has been a fantastic player for the Birds for years. He really rejuvenated that Eagles cornerback position after for so long. I mean, we really never saw any high-level cornerback play for years in Philadelphia until the Birds traded for Darius Slay in 2020, and ever since then, he's been fantastic, and some of the best years of his entire career were here in Philadelphia, and Slay's going to go down as one of the best Eagles corners of all time, as in 5 seasons, he played in 73 games for the Birds and put up 272 tackles, 56 passes defensed, 9 interceptions, 11 tackles for loss, 1 forced fumble, 3 fumble recoveries, 4 touchdowns, and of course, he's also a 3-time Pro Bowler with the Eagles, a 2-time NFC champ, and a Super Bowl champion in his final year. So that's a pretty legendary Eagles career if you ask me. And also, on top of that, he's just been a phenomenal leader for this Eagles team. I mean, he's been a 3-time captain over the last 3 seasons. He's been a very positive presence in the locker room, and he's also just been a mentor to the young corners, including Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean this past year, and that's no doubt a big reason why they were able to have so much immediate success in their rookie seasons. And again, Slay was just one of the best leaders on this Eagles team in general. I mean, just listen to what AJ Brown had to say about him. Quote, "As a teammate, he's one of the best teammates in the locker room. As a player, I think he's a Hall of Fame player." So yeah, I mean, it's no secret that Slay was loved in the Eagles locker room, and there's no denying that if this is it for Slay in Philly, then losing him definitely hurts both from an on-field standpoint, but also just from a leadership perspective and an off-field standpoint as well. So thank you to Darius Slay for everything that you've given the Eagles over the past 5 years, and if this is it, then you definitely will be missed. Now, all that being said, this move does make sense, and it isn't a huge surprise. I mean, again, it would have been real expensive, probably unaffordable to keep Slay around on his current contract, and by releasing him, the Eagles are saving money for this offseason, specifically adding $4.3 million in cap space by releasing him with a post-June 1st designation, which they in fact did. Plus, this also falls right in line with what Howie Roseman said just last week at the Combine regarding the Eagles' plans this offseason, saying, quote, "It may look different. Some of the moves that we may have to make here may not be what are necessarily on other people's minds. It's probably not going to look like maybe the conventional wisdom thinks it should look. I would just ask our fans to just have patience throughout the offseason." So, yeah, I mean, again, he pretty much said there that they were going to have to make some decisions that aren't ideal. So again, as much as Slay likely being gone for good is a very tough pill to swallow, it does make sense that this is the route they decided to take. And now the big question obviously becomes, well, where do the Eagles go from here? What is their plan at the cornerback position moving forward? Well, obviously for starters, it's now Quinyon Mitchell's time to shine as the top cornerback on this team, and there's no doubt in my mind that he's going to be just fine there. I mean, just last season, he had one of the best rookie seasons for a corner we could possibly imagine, and if you're a fan of a team that played the Eagles last year, chances are your favorite wide receiver probably got locked up by Quinyon Mitchell. So he's obviously fantastic, and he's going to be a star moving forward. And then, of course, you got Cooper DeJean locking down the slot, and you could definitely do some interesting things with him, which I'll get to in a minute. But first, I do want to talk about the Eagles' other options to replace Slay. First one being Isaiah Rodgers, who probably would be a lot of people's first choice. Now, obviously, he's going to be a free agent this offseason, so you would have to re-sign him, but he wouldn't be too expensive, and you could probably get him for pretty good value. And also, Rodgers is a veteran, so he's got a lot of experience, and he's comfortable being a starter, as he has been in the past with the Colts. And also, this past year, he obviously was great filling in for Darius Slay when he had to, and there really wasn't too much of a drop-off there. I mean, he made some big-time plays, and overall, Rodgers' numbers on the year looked very good, and good enough to the point where PFN's Anthony DeBona thinks that the Eagles should re-sign Rodgers and have him be the starter. As he said, quote, "Assuming the Eagles don't bring back Darius Slay, Philadelphia should prioritize re-signing Isaiah Rodgers in free agency. Rodgers stepped up constantly in relief of Slay and showcased the ability to start on the outside opposite of Quinyon Mitchell. He allowed just 18 receptions on 36 targets for 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 6 pass breakups in 276 coverage snaps, according to PFF. Rodgers is only 27 years old, and the Eagles would be wise to try and secure him on a multi-year deal as a starting cornerback in Philadelphia." So I definitely don't disagree with anything that DeBona said, really, and I think that Rodgers would be a great replacement for Slay, so if you could get him back for the right price to be the starting cornerback, then I don't think that'd be a bad move at all. That said, you also got a guy in Kelee Ringo waiting in the wings who, sure, he's much more inexperienced and unproven, but he's got a lot of talent and potential. He's still just 22 years old after being drafted by the Eagles 2 years ago, and he's shown a lot of flashes of being able to be a very good player in both the regular season in 2023, when he was called upon towards the end of that season, and also in the preseason this past year, where he was just absolutely locking guys up. Plus, unlike Rodgers, Ringo's already under contract for the next 2 years, so you wouldn't have to commit any additional money to him like you would have to re-sign Rodgers. So it's definitely all very much worth considering. Personally, I think both Ringo and Rodgers would wind up being a good replacement for Slay, and I'd be fine with either one. That said, the more I think about it, the more I feel like rolling with Ringo and letting Rodgers walk makes the most sense just from a roster building standpoint, just because it saves you money and you do want to get your draft picks on the field. But what do you guys think? Would you rather go with Kelee Ringo or Isaiah Rodgers as the starting outside cornerback opposite Quinyon Mitchell next year? Give me your thoughts down in the comments below. All that being said, though, that's not to say that it's 100% strictly going to be Ringo or Rodgers on the outside next year, as the Eagles could do a number of other things to supplement Slay leaving, and it could also mean an even more increased role for Cooper DeJean, as Eagles reporter Jeff McClain laid out this scenario saying, quote, "They have 2 obvious internal options to replace Slay, Cooper DeJean or Kelee Ringo. DeJean could start on the outside in base and move inside to the slot in nickel personnel." And just to clarify, that's not to say that DeJean would strictly move to the outside, as McClain elaborated further later saying, quote, "DeJean is still in the slot in this scenario as explained in the original tweet. He would just play outside in base personnel, which would allow him to be on the field for all defensive plays. Not saying it happens, would imagine he would like the chance." So that's definitely something to consider, and it's very interesting. Now, obviously, in this scenario, you still have to have a guy like Ringo or Rodgers to play the majority of the snaps on the outside when DeJean is in the slot, and I do think it would be pretty tough for Coop to have to rotate between both positions during games. Like, it'd just be a lot to handle. That said, if he's capable of doing it, then I'm all for it, because the more plays Cooper DeJean's out there, the better. But who knows if this is even on the table at the end of the day, so we'll see what happens. However, something that unexpectedly could still be on the table is Darius Slay coming back to Philly for one final year. As even though, yes, this whole video has been about Darius Slay being released and what's next, we saw a very similar situation to this play out in 2023, as the Eagles reportedly were set to cut Slay back then, and he actually almost had signed with the Ravens, that is, before he agreed to an extension and contract restructure to stay in Philly for 2 more seasons. So could something similar happen here? Well, Eagles reporter John Clark seems to think that it is a possibility, as he tweeted out, quote, "I'm told it's possible that Darius Slay, after being released, could still come back with the Eagles at a lower number. Quote, always possible." So don't rule out a Slay return just yet, especially with him saying not too long ago that he does want to play the final year of his career with the Eagles, albeit mentioning the Lions as one other team as well.
I got one more left, but you know what I'm saying? You know how that works. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, so whatever they want to do, you know, I might re-sign back, hopefully. You know, if I ain't, then we'll see what we're doing, because I do want to play one more year for sure, though.
One more year? Okay.
Yeah, one more year for sure.
You like Detroit, you said, huh?
Oh, I love Detroit. I got nothing but love. That's my second home. Right. For sure, the 2 spots I would love to always be at is either Philly or Eagles. I mean, Philly or Eagles. So, no, main 2.
Yeah, so again, you heard it there. Slay does want to be in Philly, and with him playing just 1 more year before he retires, in my mind, him re-signing makes the most sense, as it's obviously a great situation coming off a Super Bowl win. He knows the defense, he's got great chemistry with the teammates here, and he knows he'll have success. That said, other teams like the Lions, who Slay again said he would be open to a return to, are going to be able to offer him a lot more money than the Eagles can. So could he take a big pay cut to stay in Philly, or will he go chase the biggest bag possible after already winning a Super Bowl? That's the big question, and I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But regardless, we love you, Slay. Thank you for everything you did in your 5 years in Philly, and we wish you nothing but the best moving forward. Moving on though, you do have to think that the move to release Slay happening a week before free agency starts could be indicative that they're really going to be pushing hard to re-sign linebacker Zack Baun. As again, the move created an additional $4.3 million in cap space, and the Eagles made it clear last week that bringing back Baun is likely going to be their top priority in free agency, and they can do that this week before free agency even starts. So releasing Slay a week before all the craziness begins to create more cap space likely could be a sign that, again, they're really pushing hard to get a deal done with Baun as we speak. But now, in regards to some other potential moves coming this offseason for the Birds, ESPN's Dan Graziano and Jeremy Fowler just released an article giving us a few more nuggets of information, starting with what Graziano said about Myles Garrett being, quote, "If the Browns ever do get serious about trading Garrett, I'd expect Buffalo and Philadelphia to be two of the most aggressive pursuers." So there's even more fuel added to the Myles Garrett to Philly hype train. And then in addition to that, Fowler spoke on Milton Williams' upcoming free agency, saying, quote, "Panthers might be one of the teams willing to spend big to lure defensive tackle Milton Williams away from the Super Bowl champion Eagles." So that's all very interesting and definitely things you got to pay attention to as the offseason is continuing to heat up. Personally, I think Milt's probably not coming back, whether he goes to the Panthers or somewhere else. And in regards to Garrett, I honestly don't even know what to believe anymore. I mean, we've had conflicting reports going both ways, saying that the Eagles are interested, saying that they're not interested. So again, we'll just have to wait and see. But regardless of whatever does happen, you guys already know that I'm going to be covering all of it. So if you don't want to miss any of that, then make sure you guys subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you know instantly when a video is uploaded or I go live. I actually went live immediately after Darius Slay was cut. So again, make sure you guys turn on those notifications so you don't miss anything. And also make sure you leave a like down below to show some support, because it really does help me out a ton. See if we can get to at least 600 likes on today's video. And also leave a comment down below just regarding anything that I talked about in this video. What are your thoughts on Darius Slay being released, and where could the Eagles go from here in the future? And if you want to watch another Eagles video going over the Deebo Samuel trade to the Commanders, among other news, you can check this out right here. And now with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.